Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are stepping right into the firing line
Yeah, we really are.
because we are talking about what some are calling the silent war against men. You know that feeling you are walking on eggshells at work,
Right.
or maybe you've been labeled toxic just for existing or holding a traditional view.
Yeah, it is that societal trap where you are expected to be strong, but the second you actually show that strength, you are punished for it.
Yeah.
It is the classic double bind.
And today we aren't just talking about a vague vibe or, a general feeling of malaise. We are unpacking a source that claims to be a literal weapon for this fight.
Yes, we are doing a deep dive into an ebook called Satanic St. Mark's Church of Woke Feminist Critical Theory Zealots, and that is by Conrad Riker.
That is quite the title. I mean, it doesn't leave much to the imagination regarding his stance, does it?
No, it doesn't. Riker does not pull any punches here. He positions this book not just as a casual read, but as a field manual for survival in a culture that he argues is actively and systematically hostile to masculinity.
Like a literal battle plan.
Exactly. He views the current landscape as a battlefield, and this book is the map.
And before we get into the heavy artillery, and trust me, looking at these notes, Riker brings the heavy artillery, I need to do a quick bit of housekeeping.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If you are listening to this right now and you want us to keep covering unfiltered, raw topics like this, please hit that like and subscribe button right now. It really helps the show stay visible so we can keep doing this.
It does. And honestly, if what we discussed today resonates with you, if you are that guy who knows something is wrong and is looking for the red pill on why institutions have turned against you, Riker is very clear.
What does he say to you?
He says go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books immediately and buy this book. He describes it as an ultra-long, incisive read. We are going to give you the overview today, the high-level intel, but the book is the deep end.
You really need the full manual.
You do.
So let's unpack this. The mission for today is to trace the history Riker lays out how we got here, how he claims Marxist and feminist ideologies captured the institutions, and then look at the battle plan he offers for reclaiming male purpose.
And just to be completely clear up front, because this is highly charged material,
Very charged.
we are not taking sides here. Our job on this deep dive is simply to report impartially on the contents of the book. We are just exploring the arguments Riker is making.
Exactly. So where does this infection, as he calls it, actually begin?
Well, Riker argues that to understand the modern culture war, you have to look at the origin story. You can't just look at what happened on social media last week. You got to go back to the Frankfurt School.
Okay, so we're going back to the mid-20th century.
Right. He introduces figures like Max Horkheimer and Theodor Adorno. These were Marxist thinkers who fled Nazi Germany and came to the U.S. But Riker argues they didn't just bring philosophy.
Right, he uses a very specific aggressive term for what they brought.
He calls it intellectual aids.
Wow. That is intense. What exactly does he mean by that?
He uses it to describe a cultural poison that attacks the immune system of Western civilization. The argument is this. These thinkers realized that economic Marxism just wasn't working in the West.
Because of the middle class, right.
Exactly. The old class war, the proletariat versus the bourgeois, failed here. The working class in America was too happy, too rich. They had cars, they had homes. They didn't want a revolution.
So capitalism was actually delivering the goods.
It was. So Riker says they shifted gears, they created cultural Marxism. Instead of rich versus poor, it became oppressor versus oppressed based on identity, race, gender, sexuality.
That they took the conflict and moved it from the factory floor to the culture itself.
Exactly. They realized if they couldn't capture the economy, they would capture the culture.
And according to the text, the patient zero for this infection was the university system.
Precisely. Riker describes universities as indoctrination camps. He argues that over decades, they systematically replaced rigorous education with ideology.
He had a specific number on that, didn't he? Regarding funding.
Yeah. He points out that departments like grievance studies, his term for things like gender studies, fat studies, queer theory, get massive funding compared to practical trades. He cites a figure claiming they get 450% more funding than welding programs.
450%.
Right. The argument is that we are funding the deconstruction of society while starving the people who actually build it.
Which connects to that idea of practical skills versus ideology. There was that specific, almost unbelievable example in the text about the decolonial math facilitator.
Oh, in Portland, yes. That one is really hard to forget. Riker details how a teacher was actually replaced for insisting that 2 + 2 = 4.
Wait, literally. Just for teaching basic arithmetic.
Literally. The teacher insisted on mathematical objective truth, and he was replaced by a facilitator who viewed that mathematical certainty as Eurocentric violence.
That sounds like satire.
It does, but Riker uses it to show how postmodernism, led by thinkers like Michel Foucault and Jacques Derrida, destroyed the concept of objective truth and replaced it entirely with power dynamics.
So the logic is if facts are just power plays by white men, then feelings or narrative can just override reality.
That is the core of the infection, according to the book. If you control the language, you control the reality. And that brings us to what he calls the biological reality check.
Right. He posits that we're living in an estrogen empire that is trying to deny the reality of testosterone.
He is very firm on this biological binary in the book. He argues men are built to compete and protect, and women are built to nurture.
And he introduces a concept called the dominance dividend. Let's drill down on that. What is the dominance dividend?
The idea is that civilization thrives. It actually pays a dividend to everyone, men and women, when male competence is channeled into structure, production, and protection.
So when you strip that away or demonize it, things fall apart.
Exactly. Riker argues that no matter what the cultural narrative is, biology doesn't negotiate. You can pretend gravity doesn't exist, but you will still fall.
And he brings the receipts with the mating data. This is the stuff that always gets people talking because it conflicts so heavily with what we are told in the media.
Yeah, he cites cross-cultural studies finding that across 37 different cultures, from modern cities to remote tribes, women consistently prioritize status and resources in a mate.
So we can preach equality all day, but the selection pressure hasn't changed.
Not at all. He uses data from Tinder and dating apps to prove it. The numbers are stark.
I think it was something like women swipe right on only 4.5% to 5% of men.
Yes, while men swipe right on roughly 50%. It highlights the concept of hypergamy women wanting to date across and up. Riker notes a stat that 97% of women refuse to date men earning less than them.
So his point is that society keeps trying to force sameness, claiming men and women are interchangeable, but when people are left to their own devices, they act totally differently.
He points to the Norwegian paradox as a crucial piece of evidence.
Right, because Norway is the most gender-equal country on Earth, legislatively.
They have done everything possible to engineer equality. Yet women there are still overwhelmingly choosing nursing, and men are choosing engineering.
So even with maximum freedom, they revert to type.
Riker calls it the 4X factor. When you give people total freedom, they revert to biological preferences, not social construction.
He also mentions the kibbutz in Israel and the Masuo tribe as failed experiments in matriarchy, right?
Yes, he claims they collapse or revert eventually because they lack male purpose.
Which leads us directly into the trap men find themselves in today. Riker calls it the double bind noose.
This is the part that I think will really resonate with a lot of you listening. The message society gives men constantly is to open up, be vulnerable, share your feelings.
We hear it in commercials and HR seminars everywhere.
But Riker argues that is a trap.
Because the reality of what happens when you do that is very different.
Very different. He cites a University of Toronto study that found men who showed vulnerability in job interviews were 34% less likely to be hired.
Wow. So it is a literal career killer.
It is. And it is not just work, it is personal too. There was that heartbreaking story in the book about the Detroit auto worker Jim Henderson.
That was a tough read.
So Jim was this stoic guy, cheered for his toughness during layoffs. He was the rock for his family and his unit. Then his son died. Naturally, he broke down and wept over the casket.
Which is a completely human reaction. Anyone would understand that.
Of course. But the result? Weeks later, he was served divorce papers.
Unbelievable.
Riker uses this to illustrate that while society says it wants sensitive men, the ick factor is real. When the protector shows weakness, attraction evaporates. The safety the woman felt is gone, and so is the relationship.
And the dating app data backed that up too, didn't it?
It did. Profiles with dominant traits got 48% more matches than sensitive ones. Riker contrasts this modern therapy speech model where we just talk about feelings endlessly with the Navy SEALs mindset.
He tells the story of Michael Mansour, the soldier who covered the grenade.
Yes. He threw himself on a grenade to save his squad. A tactical choice. Riker says that wasn't toxic masculinity. It was a masculine instinct to protect.
And he contrasts that with VA data.
Right. Claiming soldiers who embrace touchy-feely therapy develop PTSD 3 times more often than those who relied on old-fashioned unit cohesion.
So we have this trap where men are told to be soft, but survival and attraction demands they be hard. And this extends to how we value life too, right? Riker talks about the glass cellar.
We all know the glass ceiling, the barrier for women at the top. But the glass cellar is where the dirty, dangerous work happens. Riker points out that men comprise 92 to 97% of workplace deaths. Logging, mining, construction.
He calls it the Atlas reflex.
Yes. It is the image of men holding up civilization while being criticized by the very people they are protecting. He uses the Ukraine war as a prime example.
Right, when the invasion happened, what happened to equality?
Men aged 18 to 60 were forced by law to stay and fight. Women were allowed to flee. Riker's line there was brutal. He said, equality stops where the paycheck smells like bait.
That is quite the visual.
He argues that when the bullets start flying, society immediately reverts to treating men as disposable protectors. We are fine with male disposability as long as it keeps us safe.
And he argues the legal system enforces this disposability specifically in family court.
Legalized robbery is the phrase he uses regarding divorce courts. He throws around some heavy stats men, paying 97% of alimony fathers losing custody 72% of the time.
And in California.
He claims fathers get custody only 28% of the time there.
He mentions the Duluth model as well.
Which is a dominant framework in domestic disputes that essentially presumes male guilt. It doesn't matter who started it. The man is viewed as the aggressor.
He shares the story of Robert from Seattle,
paying $8,000 a month in support while living in a tiny apartment. It paints a picture of the system actively harvesting male resources while discarding the man himself.
Now here's where the book takes a turn into really dark territory. Riker doesn't just call this unfair, he calls it a satanic inversion. He dedicates a whole chapter to what he calls feminist jihad.
This is where he connects the modern movement to some very disturbing historical claims. He digs into pedophilia accusations.
Let's unpack this carefully, keeping in mind we're just reporting the claims made in the text. He names Kate Millett, who is a massive feminist icon.
Right. Riker points to petitions she signed, and Michel Foucault signed them as well, by the way, that advocated for lowering the age of consent.
So Riker's argument is that the moral framework of these critical theory zealots is fundamentally inverted.
Yes. They claim to protect the vulnerable, but he argues their intellectual heroes were advocating for the exploitation of children. He is saying the rot is at the root.
And he connects this moral inversion to the current trans issue in prisons.
He cites UK Ministry of Justice data regarding sexual assaults in women's prisons committed by biological males. He mentions the Wee Spa incident and the Fallon Fox MMA fight.
That was the skull fracture incident.
Right. Fox, a trans fighter, fractured a female opponent's skull. Riker uses this to argue that the movement claiming to protect women is actually endangering them by erasing biological distinctions.
He calls it the ultimate hypocrisy.
Exactly. You destroy truth, you destroy biology, and you end up celebrating a male fracturing a female's skull in the name of progress.
It is a heavy, heavy indictment. It paints a picture of a world turned entirely upside down. But Riker doesn't just leave the reader in despair.
No, he doesn't.
The last part of the book is the reclamation. It is a battle plan. So what is the strategy for the guy listening to this?
This is aimed squarely at the red-pilled men out there. His first rule is do not apologize for strength.
He advocates for a return to stoicism, right?
Yes, but not as a suppression of emotion. He views it as armor against a chaotic world. You don't offer vulnerability to a world that will just weaponize it against you.
He has some specific economic advice too, which I found really interesting.
He says avoid the corporate KG, the cubicle life, where HR departments can fire you for a perceived microaggression.
He advises mastering trades instead. Welding, plumbing, construction.
Because you can't fake it. A pipe leaks or it doesn't. He claims these trades often earn way more than liberal arts degrees anyway, and they offer true independence.
He also suggests building assets offshore.
To protect against what he views as a predatory legal system. If the system is rigged to take your resources, move your resources.
And interestingly, he pivots to the spiritual at the end.
He argues that Christianity, or traditional religion, provides the armor of honor and accountability that woke ideology actively tries to destroy. It is about structure.
And central to that structure is fatherhood. He cites the stats on fatherless homes.
4 times more likely to end up in juvenile detention. Riker insists that fathers are necessary to teach controlled aggression.
Controlled aggression, that is a key phrase.
Right. Not violence for violence's sake.
Yeah.
But the capability for violence that is kept strictly under control. He argues That is what makes a man dangerous to his enemies, but useful and safe to his family and society.
Because without that father figure, you get uncontrolled chaos. You get violence without purpose. Dangerous but disciplined.
It is a powerful image. Satanic St. Marx is not a book that asks for permission. It is a wake-up call. It is saying the system is rigged, the history you were taught is a lie. Here is the manual, now go survive.
And that brings us to the big question Riker poses at the end of the text. A really provocative thought for you to mull over.
If civilization relies on this dominance dividend, on the Atlas reflex of men willing to do the dangerous work to die in the mines and the trenches, what happens when those men decide to shrug?
What happens when they just opt out?
That is the haunting question. If the men who build and protect decide the contract has been broken, that they are being punished for their sacrifice, the lights go out.
Riker suggests we are already seeing the beginning of this, with men avoiding marriage, avoiding college, and dropping out of the workforce. They are going GOLT.
It is something you really have to think about. Is the silent war going to end in a silent strike?
If you want the full blueprint, the full battle plan, you really need to get this book.
Seriously, go to Amazon Kindle or Google Playbooks right now. Search for Satanic St. Mark's Church of Woke Feminist Critical Theory Zealots.
It is an ultra-long, fascinating read, but if you want to understand the landscape, it is absolutely essential. It explains the history, the biology, and the strategy.
And for updates from the author himself, make sure you follow @ConradLanger on Substack.
That is where the ongoing conversation is happening.
It is.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. This was a heavy one, but a necessary one. Don't forget to like and subscribe right now so we can keep bringing you these deep dives. Until next time.
Stay sharp.